there's 151,600 people that die on average every day in the world somewhere. So every 10 seconds, another 17 people die in the world somewhere. So then if you ask the question, is this 151,600, is that a number that's going up during this pandemic? Is this a number where we're actually seeing more people dying? We don't have a good way of assessing that number, and there's good arguments on both sides that it could actually be going down.
Thank you for joining Change I Am Possible, India's first future tech podcast. Do kindly subscribe, support, and share. So today I have with us Thomas Frey, who is Google's top-rated futurist and ex IBMer. He also happens to be IBM's most awarded engineer. So Thomas is the founder at DaVinci Institute. He's a speaker, author, and an active blogger. His weekly newsletter, Future Trend Report, and articles for the Futurist Speaker blog are treasure troves for anyone who wants to understand what the future holds. I wish you enjoyed this conversation.
So Thomas, our world has changed completely, right? The entire world is on a pause at this point in time due to COVID-19. And it's just taken a couple of months, right? It's not even taken a long time. COVID-19 has turned Bill Gates, one of the world's top entrepreneurs, into the most hated man. Elon Musk created a complete protest when he tweeted that hospitals in California have been half empty. In defiance, he also restarted his Tesla factory because he's been saying that he's got so many employees in China and there's been and they're all fine. Some doctors and some very intelligent people have openly claimed lockdown is not the best solution or approach. Sweden, Tanzania, and many other countries have not gone on a lockdown. So clearly, there are two camps, right? There is one which is peddling fear, and the other who's taking a cautious and calculated approach. Where do you stand? What are your views?
Yeah, see we spent all our time trying to solve for X, which is the pandemic problem. And that's created this Y problem, which is the economic problem, which is even bigger. And as we try to put the pieces back together on the economy, that's created like 27 other problems that we're all trying to use duct tape and Band-Aids to try to hold together. So this is clearly not a good solution. This is not a good approach to dealing with something like this. Businesses were simply not designed to be shut down and to be restarted later. There's so many things that are breaking along the way. And we're just starting to see the first wave of bankruptcies that are happening, and we're going to see massive amounts more. And some of the businesses are going to fail just because people have time to just sit back and think, is this the business I really want to do? Is this the same job I want to do moving forward? So we're going to have more people changing jobs, changing careers than ever before in history. So this is one massive shift all at once. And so this is also going to be the most expensive crisis in all history. When we start putting all the dollars together that were spent on all of the patches and fixes and everything that we're trying to do, I think it becomes more expensive than World War II was. It's just a hugely expensive undertaking, and we're going to be feeling the effects of this for decades to come. This is not a short-term thing, and so we're going to have everything that was important to us in October, November, December last year. Suddenly, that has changed. All of the goals, the strategies we were using back then, how we're going to improve our lives, how we're going to accomplish more things, everything we wanted to do, suddenly we've reached this radical demarcation point and everything changes from here on out. Our goals, our ambitions, our pursuits, what constitutes success, all of that changes. Our definition of what a hero is, what a villain is, all of that changes as well. And so I think we have vastly different storytelling coming out of this, and we're going to look to them to help guide our thinking.
the entire world is changing, and somehow I see a lack of the voice of reasoning doesn't seem to be there, because the fear has completely taken over us. So, in America, there's over 20 million who have filed for unemployment benefits. In India, we have a large population. We've got 1.3 billion people, and close to 30% are daily wage laborers. They have been impacted terribly. And I've seen videos of them, where these families, the daily wage laborers, who have walked miles and miles with their families, their babies in their hand, with no food, no water, and it's extremely, extremely depressing. Now, US has a $3 trillion stimulus package. India is talking about a close to 300 billion stimulus package to revive the economy. What do you think should be done with that kind of money? Should this money go back into those banks or those entrepreneurs, big entrepreneurs or institutes, or should this money be distributed to the people who are actually in need, or the general population equally, so that we can weather this storm out together, rather than the money going in the hands of these bankers and institutions? What are your views on that?
Yeah, it's as it's turning out, the economic pandemic is far worse than the viral pandemic, because the deaths that occur to starvation, the deaths that occur to child abuse and family abuse and people committing suicide, all of these deaths are just skyrocketing right now, because there's so many people kind of falling between the cracks of society. And while you try to solve all this problem, pushing money here and there, it's never going to be an equitable solution. It's never going to be fair for everybody. And that's why I say I'm really glad I'm not a politician right now, because they're having to make really tough decisions. But we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner, and it's tool that have at their disposal to throw money at it. It seems like we're creating far more problems than we're ever anticipating. See, it's just simply not possible to have this many top-down decisions made by governments and officials without having just a huge number of unintended consequences. And that's what we're seeing. They're not purposely trying to hurt anybody there, but if you think about this overall approach, we have a disease and we have to shut down society because of we're too close to each other. That suddenly that leaves out over 1 billion people in the world. It leaves out all the people that are living in slums, the people that are in prisons, that are in refugee camps. There's all kinds of military groups. There's all kinds of groups all over the world that simply can't comply with these type of restrictions. It just doesn't work. And I should point out that the rule set that we have with this disease is vastly different than the rule set we'll have with other diseases in the future. So as an example, some disease in the future might be transmitted through hair follicles. And so everybody will be forced to shave their heads or shave their beards and shave their bodies. How many people are going to comply with something like that? Because that's, and so there's any number of different kinds of rule sets that could come with a disease like this. This is the particular rule set that we're dealing with at the moment.
Right. Yeah, you rightfully said that social distancing, I think it's a luxury for those people who are living in slums. Like I said, 1.3 billion people, and there's a large population in India who are migrant or daily wage laborers. And I believe that they are impacted the most. And then you said disease of the future. I'm sure there are, this just could be the first of those waves of disease and pandemics coming in the future. How is technology fighting COVID-19 at this point in time, and will technology maybe be able to curb future pandemics?
Well, there's all the the talk, all the emphasis has been on finding a vaccine, and there's lots of other approaches to solving a problem like this. Some of the solutions could be, I mean, what if we had a different coating for our skin, and we take a shower and we coat our body with something that actually provides some sort of a layer of protection for our body. There's different ways of scanning with VR goggles, with AR goggles, and scanning a crowd and being able to determine who's infected and who isn't. Being able to spot this problem in different ways, and then how we react to it, find out who came into contact with who over the last couple of weeks. I mean, there's the Koreans were particularly effective in rapid response, finding out through their financial transactions who they came into contact with over the past couple of weeks, and then putting those people in quarantine at the same time. And then you have anomalies like Japan that didn't really do much testing and didn't take that many precautions, and all of a sudden it's all over in Japan. And so what's the right solution? We have all this conflicting information. It's really hard for me as a consumer to sort through and decide what the right answer is. And then when this is all over, we're going to have lots of people casting blame on different groups. 20% of the people in Great Britain think that this was all caused by the Jews. There's people in Australia that think that this is all caused by and so a lot of people in America think it was caused by Bill Gates. You know, we're blaming China. We're blaming politicians. There's blame, more than enough blame to go around, and so then we have to try to weed through. Well, what's the truth here? We're going to have more conspiracy theories come out of this than anything else. Every conspiracy theory in the past is going to pale in comparison, because this is such a rich treasure trove of all kinds of crazy stuff, and political groups are trying to leverage it to their advantage. And so, yeah, there's going to be lots of crazy puppet masters out there trying to manipulate things.
Yeah, you rightly said, Tom, that I mean, things are looking extremely crazy, and I think the blame games takes you nowhere. But I think the world deserves an answer on where the virus came from, who was the patient zero and things like that. But I think more importantly, I mean, you know, instead of getting into blame games, because just in India also we have that there's like a certain section of people who the Hindus believe that the Muslims got it. I think it's definitely going crazy. So yes, the technology at this point in time is being used for tracking, tracing, and treatment. Like you pointed out towards, you know, these people who have built like VR goggles or thermal based cameras where you can detect fevers and these tracking and monitoring apps. Right, so Yuval Noah Harari made this, had written this article on how this could be the rise of the totalitarian regime, because yes, we do need to, track and trace these people, and that's the reason we're using these technologies. But these technology needs to be time limited, and if they are not time limited, we are pushing forward a world where we could be living in a surveillance society. So what are your views on that?
Yeah, one of the trends we're seeing is deglobalization. There's more protectionism coming into play. Companies are wanting to have better control over the supply chain, their own manufacturing, their own processes and everything. And so there's, like in the United States, we want more control over the rare earth minerals that are used in all of the smart devices. So there's going to be much more exploration in that area. So all of this protectionism and everything, I think will be a short-term process. But it'll have huge ramifications because we're pulling some of the manufacturing out of other countries, putting it into our own country. And then as we run out of jobs here in the United States, run out of people to do the jobs in the US, and we'll send it back maybe 2 to 3 years later. Um, but there's a lot of these short-term trends like that. Now, this is bolstering anything in the digital space. So we're going to start seeing more and more startups move into the digital space because they can control that. Whether it's creating content, whether it's creating new services, telehealth related things. There's huge business opportunities in this area. Some of them I've been thinking through are ones that include everything from more robotics, more automation, because we don't have to worry about robots carrying disease or spreading disease between themselves or things like that. And but it's, most of the robotics is just not ready for prime time yet. Having delivery bots that will deliver products to somebody's door, we don't have the systems in place for all that yet. As an example, we have delivery package to your front door. Where is it okay to leave that package? What if there's dogs out there? What if you have to go up steps? What if it's raining out or hailing out or snowing out? And what if it can be stolen by some people? If you're living in an apartment complex or in an office building, where is it okay to leave that package? We don't have any of those answers sorted out yet. So we have to create a whole new level of infrastructure to deal with that. But there's tons and tons of opportunity. One of the things I've been talking about is that we're going through this period of great chaos, and in great chaos comes great opportunity. And so we're forced to get creative during this period of time.
Right. Yeah. You said, yeah, I mean, I think every dark cloud has a silver lining, so the period of great chaos creates great opportunity. So yes, I mean, there are certain sectors of businesses which are thriving, right? I mean, you pointed out, the content, the streaming space, the retail, e-commerce space, those are thriving, right? So to my listeners now, whether they are startups or entrepreneurs who are starting up on their journey and setting up these businesses, which are the sectors which you would say, okay, these are the strict no-go zones, right? And where would you point them towards? And you see that if you go over there, there's millions of dollars, waiting.
So let me just mention a few of them. So there's cybersecurity is going to have lots of huge issues as people are working from home. The normal protections that they had working in a business aren't there, and so they're subject to many more phishing scams and other challenges than ever before. Just electronic health services, the telehealth stuff, being able to actually diagnose problems remotely for people, that's taken on a whole new it had been working in the past, but kind of poorly. Now everybody wants that to happen right now. In the ed tech world, being able to provide education remotely to students of all ages, that's becoming incredibly important over the last couple months here. Just reinventing the funeral industry, because people are dying and you can't hold funerals right now. So suddenly the sharing economy is bad, and so all of this idea of any large gatherings is bad. So having things in a stadium, having things on a parade on Main Street, going to movie theaters, all these sporting events, everything is suddenly bad. and so how do we make that good again? Um, so much of our society has been designed around having people in close proximity. I mean, we're social creatures by nature. We like to be around crowded, exciting environments. If you go to a comedy club and one person starts laughing, it becomes infectious, and it infects the rest of the crowd, and everybody starts laughing. If you go to a sporting event, one person starts cheering, all the other people start cheering, so that becomes infectious. And so many things have been designed around that type of thinking, and now suddenly it's all bad. It's it just isn't what it was supposed to be, and so what's going to replace all these things, and how do we transition back into the way it was, and how long does that take?
Right. Yeah. So most of these guys, like you said, yeah, they are trying to reinvent. I mean, the comedy platform at this point in time. I mean, they're taking it digitally, and they're finding ways. The human race is resilient, and we always find ways. So, but if you see the news media has been painting a complete negative picture of COVID-19, and some of the biggest media news network have been exploiting the pandemic, and even the internet at this point in time is completely full of negative media. So fear can freeze people's natural response, and stress is known to be the biggest immunity killer. Do you see this avalanche of negative media upon us today, creating a further damage post-COVID, as most of the diseases root cause is stress?
Yeah, once again, I think that's a natural byproduct of the economic pandemic. As the economic situation gets worse, I see the death, the injury, the long-lasting psychological problems, the mental health issues just escalating. They just go up exponentially, because it's just natural that the more economic stress we create in society, the more breaking points we reach. Um, I mean, we're first thrown into survival mode. Just suddenly when we're forced to lock down, we suddenly go into survival mode, and then we have lots of panic buying. We have lots of people trying to hoard money, try to hoard food and supplies. We have people that are going out of their way just to get whatever it takes for them to survive, and then once they feel okay, then it goes on to kind of a next phase of, okay, what do we do next? And it's kind of a malaise that, okay, now we're just waiting. We're waiting for something else to happen, and more people are reading the news than ever before. They're glued to their televisions. They're glued to podcasts and audiobooks, whatever it takes for them to gain some understanding of what's going on around them. So, and this fear that you're talking about is very pervasive. And I mean, in the past, I mean, people would talk about, I mean, people are dying right and left. Um, so just to give you a number, there's 151,600 people that die on average every day in the world somewhere. So every 10 seconds, another 17 people die in the world somewhere. And so then if you ask the question, is this 151,600, is that a number that's going up during this pandemic? Is this a number where we're actually seeing more people dying? We don't have good way of assessing that number, and there's good arguments on both sides that it could actually be going down. There's fewer car deaths, as example, because fewer people driving on the roads. Some people are finding it less stressful sitting at home just watching TV shows and cooking, because they find it relaxing. So they might have less stress, and so there might be less people dying. But what we do know is that in general, 1 out of every 5 people in the world dies of heart disease, some sort of heart failure. 1 out of every 6 people in the world dies of cancer. And the numbers from coming out of the coronavirus are minuscule. They're tiny compared to heart failures and cancers of the world. So if we wrote an article about every person that died of cancer, we would have a never-ending supply of news articles. But everybody's gotten kind of bored hearing about people dying of cancer, so they don't listen to that anymore. But if we have somebody that dies of COVID-19, suddenly every little nuance and detail becomes newsworthy for some reason, because people are so glued to this one topic. Now, there's a lot of bad incentives here, because people that write these news articles are they're incented to kind of create some hyper sensationalism for this article to get more readers, because people will click on the ad, so they make more money as a result of that. That caused a lot of sensationalism. That's caused a lot of bad news reporting, bad coverage, but it's happening on all sides of the political spectrum. So, and there's lots of weird fringe groups that are trying to get noticed in the middle of all this. So it's not, we can't point to just one thing doing all this, but we do have a lot of the wrong incentives in place at this moment.
Thank you for sharing all those details. And I guess those kind of details needs to go out so people get to know the facts, rather than just I mean, taking in all those negative media and the negative news. So yes, I mean, there's a minuscule number of people who are dying with COVID, and I think rather than driving the fear-based conversation, we need to push forward the information. You should be more informed and take the right decisions, stay safe and secure, rather than just panic. So what, according to you, are the positives which has come out of COVID-19?
We've actually seen pollution drop in the world. That's definitely a positive. We're actually rebooting society. I mean, we shut everything down, so we have time to step back and look at it objectively. We have time to think about it. We have time to decide what should come next. And all of these things we've taken for granted in the past, sending our kids to school. There's a report that just came out that said that in the United States, a total of 59% are rethinking this idea of sending their kids back to school this fall. That's a huge number. I'm sure that changes over time, but yeah, but even if 10% of the population just decided not to send their kids to school, the traditional public school, that's a massive game changer. So what replaces that? How is that all dealt with? There's lots of positive, lots of negatives. It's giving people an excuse if they want to get out of their business, if they wanted to get out of their job. This is an excuse for making those changes.
This natural disaster, like you said, it's rebooted the society. And even if you said, there are these parents who are rethinking if they should send their kids to school. They've understood the importance of technology. They've understood the importance of remote education, the importance of creating human relationships. We have understood the importance of earth and letting it breathe. Things have changed for the better. So yes, I mean, there's a lot of positives that we can take from here. And this time, we can use this time to reinvent, rethink, and reskill to tackle the coming future, because the future can be superbly exciting for the ones who want to build a better future, and it could be completely depressing and negative for the ones who live in fear. So yes, there are two kind of people who will take this as an opportunity and move ahead and break barriers and make people understand that nothing is impossible, and there'll be those others who will be sitting at their home and crying. Any last words to my listeners? I mean, especially the ones who are sitting over here in India. I mean, what would be your, as a futurist, what do you see a world? Where is it going? Is things going to come back to normal? I'm sure you must have got this question 100 times, but will the world come back to normal, or will there be a new normal post-COVID?
Yeah, part of our obligation is for every generation to transfer the knowledge that we learned in this generation onto the next generation. Now, how we do that is going to change dramatically in the future as we have more and more tools with. I think we have to move into a more hyper-individualized education operation. We simply have to do that. The schools cannot just be a one-size-fits-all formula for educating people. So having, and I'll use this scenario here, the idea of having an AI teacher bot that understands who you are, and it understands what skills you have as an individual and what you're deficient in, and then it suddenly learns who you are. It learns all your idiosyncrasies, all your proclivities, all of the things that your preferred reference points. It learns what topics you're interested in, what you're not interested in. It learns what time of day you're more receptive to learning than others. And it starts feeding you this learning process on a daily basis. And suddenly, through this type of process, we learn to become, we start learning 2 times faster, 4 times faster, maybe even 10 times faster, because everything is aligned with who we are as an individual. And then traditional teachers, I think, they move more into a coaching role because things still go wrong. And we still need to teach people how to socialize, and we can't teach everything in an online fashion. I mean, if you're going to become a bricklayer, you have to know how to actually physically handle bricks. So there's lots of things that still have to be done in the physical world, but it seems like this idea of educating people for the future is going to be increasingly important, and having college degrees and things like that as a status symbol. I think all of that starts to change as we create new credentialing systems. So I've used this idea of micro credits. So as a rough formula, 100 micro credits will equal 1 college credit. And so as example, if you read a book and you take a test, then you get 14.7 microcredits. You watch a movie, you take a test, you get 3.2 microcredits. So we're actually credentialing people for lots of learning activities that happen in their life that they normally wouldn't get credit for. And so today, having a PhD is one of the highest level of accomplishments. In the future, I think we're actually going to create, 200 or 300 levels above a PhD. So you get this black belt PhD category 5 super wizard category that and people will be leveling up. It's a gamification process, and so then we can have the super educated people because they're learning from all different forms of learning that are available. This idea of siloing everything in one institution or another institution, it's very counterproductive. We have to open it up so learning can happen in lots of new and interesting ways, because that's how we better society. We have all these pedigree institutions that it's all based on experiencing life through the eyes of that brick and mortar campus that you're on. And I don't think all of those go away or anything, but there's lots of other ways of learning. As an example, if I travel around the world, I learn so much more than if I'm sitting in a classroom. Just experiencing different cultures, different people, different languages. All of these things are so important that don't think that we should just try to isolate people to thinking in terms of just having um, your education done inside of a classroom. And and yeah, I wrote a column recently on this idea of podcast college, um, because the idea of going into a lecture hall, 150, 200 people in there, and having some professor drone on and on it from the front of the room, that's far less interesting than having two or three people, smart people, having a conversation about a topic. That to me seems to be much more interesting. It sticks in my head better than having some professor with some 18 degrees tell me about particle physics or something. That just, I get bored, fall asleep and start drifting off it.
It, it,
So anyway, I think there's just massive, huge opportunities here, and I'm convinced that by 2030, that the largest company on the internet is going to be an education-based company that we haven't heard of yet. I think that that's the largest opportunity in the online world where nobody's quite cracked the code for that. And as soon as they figure it out, it's going to scale very fast.
you beautifully put, because the education in a classroom restricts people, I mean, there is so much one can do. There's virtual reality, with that you can experience learning, rather than being restricted in a classroom. And you rightfully pointed out that, there are ways where we can personalize learning rather than there are 60 or 70 students and there's one teacher, and there are these information that you take, information is available free on the net. So yes, I think the world is changing. It's looking beautiful. I think technology is going to create the next evolution in education, and yes, I think the next disruption in education is waiting to happen, because there are so many loopholes which needs to be fit, and there is technology which is coming, and you have pointed out and given a couple of ingredients for the listeners to take in and build a business. You said, you could incentivize education, you could gamify education, you could personalize education with AI. There is so much one can do. And yes, I think we're living in great times. Thomas, I really appreciate you taking time and sharing your insights. So as a parting note, again, I mean, I'll ask the same thing. What do you see happening post COVID? Will things come back to normal, or we'll just
Yeah.
yeah.
So one thing I've been saying is that the people of the world are I think they're going to universally stand up and say never again. They never ever want to take this approach because it's just way too disruptive. It's harmful to too many people. But let me take one side little detour here. If you were to go into a library 25 years ago, you had these tough questions you had to answer. It could very likely take you 10 hours to go through the card catalogs and search through books and find all the answers. Today, you can use a search engine and find all those answers in probably 10 minutes. So going from 10 hours to 10 minutes. Now the next iteration will be the 10-second interface. If you have a question, you can think your way into it. So whether it has some sort of a brain interface or whatever, but you'll be able to think your way into it. And so this will be much less reliance on having everything stored in your memory. Now, if you think about having a set of AR goggles that you're wearing, and you are able to have a mentor or a tutor or somebody that's coaching you. So as an example, you're working on the engine of your car and you're trying to fix it, they can tell you what to do next, and they could actually put in overlays as to where this part is that you should be looking at. And or if you're trying to pick out what stock to invest in, having Warren Buffett in your ear telling you what to pay attention to, that would be very helpful. And so that type of guidance, that type of learning, I think is coming in the future. And And I think that these are also, they all represent opportunities that somebody can figure out. Somebody can actually dive in and solve this problem, because we're very bad at thinking three-dimensionally. We really are, because we've been trained from birth to think with two-dimensional paper, two-dimensional whiteboards, two-dimensional books. Even the monitors, the screens on our computers are two-dimensional. So if we took the display on our computer and threw it away and just displayed things three-dimensionally above it, we can't even imagine what that would look like. What does that look like to go shopping three-dimensionally? What does it look like to surf the internet three-dimensionally? If you have a three-dimensional charts and graph, what is that third dimension? What does that represent? These are things that are just kind of go right over our head, because we just haven't been taught to think three-dimensional, but we live in a three-dimensional world. So somehow I think we need to get there as well.
Lovely. Thank you. Really appreciate you sharing your insights. And yes, I mean, since I've been invested in AR, VR space, I do understand how 2D, the medium, has been restricting us, and how the coming of a wearable device, which could be in another few years, could be maybe like the glasses that we're wearing, and it'll make us jump from a 2D world into the 3D world, where we'll be the spatial computing age. So yes, I mean, I think we're living in exciting times, and this COVID-19 could be just one of those minor roadblock which maybe came in to teach humanity to come together, collaborate, and grow as a race. Maybe that's and I believe that we need bold, brave, visionary futurists like yourself in each and every organizations, so they understand and they have a foresight for the future and start building for the future. Because if you're ready for tomorrow, our world is going to look exciting. So thank you, Thomas Frey. Really appreciate you taking time and being part of Change I Am Possible podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. And like always, I'm going to leave behind all the details of Mr. Frey, my guest, down below, so we can interact, reach out, and because this is about building a community and building a better place. Yeah, so thank you once again, Mr. Frey.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.